A lion doesn't lose sleep over the opinion of sheep. Welcome back, Ascenders. You're not watching this video by accident. You're here because you know you're wired differently. You operate on your own frequency. You don't follow noise. You calculate, isolate, and execute. Sigma isn't a trend to you. It's architecture. It's coded into how you think, move, and win. And today, we're cracking open a checklist built for the ungovernable you. These aren't your typical strong, silent type clichés. These are battle-tested traits, forged in solitude, sharpened in silence, and lived by men who build power in the shadows. Now, as always, don't forget to subscribe to Sigma Ascends. You're not joining a fan base. You're stepping into a brotherhood of clarity, control, and cold precision. Let's begin. 1. Silent calculus. You're not just quiet, you're running simulations, constantly. While the world talks to hear itself, you're listening, absorbing, mapping. Every conversation is data. Every gesture is a variable. Every environment is a board to be played. A Sigma doesn't walk into a room for attention. He walks in to analyze the room's energy, the exits, the social dynamics, the hidden agendas. He decodes people, not to control them, but to avoid being controlled. This trait is deeper than being observant. It's silent calculus, a form of mental warfare. You're doing math on life. You notice the anxious tapping of a foot across the table and link it to a lie being told. You watch someone glance twice at the clock and know they're uncomfortable. You recognize power plays, insecurity masking as confidence, desperation hiding under charm. This constant inner dialogue can feel isolating, but it's a superpower. It means you're never surprised, never caught off guard. You see things as they are, not how they're presented. And here's the twist. Silent calculus makes you unpredictable. Why? Because while others react impulsively, you respond precisely. You let people overplay their hand, then you make a single calculated move that ends the game. You're not detached, you're just too focused to be distracted. While everyone else is asking, what do people think of me? You're asking, what advantage does this moment hold, and how can I quietly extract it? In conflict, you're not the one who yells. You're the one who tilts your head and says, "Are you done?" In relationships, you're not the chaser. You're the gravity people can't explain but can't escape. You don't just see the present, you see probabilities. You don't play life like checkers. You're 12 moves deep in chess, and no one knows you're even playing. Silent calculus isn't loud, it isn't theatrical, but it's lethal. And once mastered, it turns you into the most dangerous person in the room, not because of what you say, but because of what you don't have to say. 2. Ghost network. You're not alone, you're just unseen. The Sigma's network isn't public, it's not Instagrammed, tweeted, or even acknowledged, but it's real, it's deep, it's dangerous. The ghost network is about strategic relationships with zero visibility. Your allies know you move in silence, and that's exactly why they respect you. You're not posting selfies with mentors or flexing collaborations. Your network moves like encrypted code, quiet, hard to trace, impossible to intercept. You build this network slowly. You don't chase connections, you curate them. Every person you let in is vetted, not by popularity, but by utility and integrity. This isn't networking, it's node activation. Every contact is a tool, a portal, a power source. You might have a coder in Berlin, a fixer in Manila, a logistics guy in Cape Town, and a strategist in Austin. And none of them know about each other. That's the point. They don't need to. You're the only visible link in the chain, and even you prefer to stay fogged. The beauty of the ghost network is redundancy without exposure. If one person goes dark, the others don't suffer. You compartmentalize everything. You operate like a one-man intelligence agency. People underestimate the Sigma because they don't see the army behind him. That's the mistake. You don't flaunt who you know. You leverage what they can do. You don't speak on affiliations. You execute through precision favors, off-the-record calls, and non-verbal codes of trust. Your power isn't loud, it's latent. You move like vapor. Your moves can't be predicted because your network is invisible, distributed, and disloyal to the spotlight. In a world obsessed with who do you know, you flip the script. You don't need to know who I know. You just need to know I'm never alone, even when I disappear. 3. Polite disobedience. You don't bark. You don't rebel just to be seen. You obey until it's no longer intelligent to obey. Polite disobedience is the art of bending reality with a smile. You understand structure, not to stay in line, but to know exactly where it's weak. Unlike the loud rebels who burn everything down just to feel something, you play chess with authority. You nod when needed, you comply just enough. You never raise red flags, but you're never fully compliant either. Why? Because blind obedience is a chain dressed as a handshake, and Sigma, he cuts the chain but keeps the handshake, outwardly polite, inwardly sovereign. You follow orders when they make sense. When they don't, you improvise, and when someone with fake power tries to flex, you dismantle their ego without ever raising your voice. You're the guy who shows up to the corporate meeting in a clean shirt, but mentally dissects how the entire system is inefficient. You smile at the boss, but build your exit plan during lunch breaks. You're not afraid to say no, but when you do, it's so calm, so surgical, people question if they ever asked in the first place. Polite disobedience isn't passive-aggressive, it's strategic indifference. It's the understanding that true power doesn't need to scream, "I'm in control." It simply moves in and takes over, quietly. You use manners like a Trojan horse. You speak with respect, not because you're beneath anyone, but because it disarms them. They never see the independence coming. You agree until it's time to disappear. You're not confrontational because you don't need to be. And when you finally walk away, it's irreversible. You already built the next path while they were still convincing themselves they had power over you. The Sigma doesn't break rules recklessly. He rewrites them privately, and by the time anyone notices, he's already gone. 4. Delayed vengeance. You don't snap, you document. Delayed vengeance isn't about anger, it's about record keeping. You absorb disrespect without reaction, not because you're weak, but because you're collecting data. You see, the Sigma doesn't seek revenge immediately. He lets the other person relax, forget, move on. That's when he strikes, or sometimes doesn't. Because vengeance for a Sigma isn't always about destruction. It's about displacement. You don't burn them. You become so untouchable that they become irrelevant. You remember the slight. You remember the lie. You remember who doubted you when you were silent, broke, or misunderstood. But you don't beg for acknowledgement. You work in silence while their memory of what they did fades. You build, earn, ascend. And then, one day, your silence becomes a mirror, and they see everything they did reflected back at them. Sometimes your vengeance is success. Sometimes it's disconnection. Sometimes it's simply never being available again. You deny them closure, not out of spite, but because you're not in the revenge business. You're in the power business, and power doesn't chase validation. This kind of patience is terrifying to others. People expect blow-ups. They're used to drama, emotion, scenes. You give them none. That's what makes you dangerous. Because when they realize you're gone, mentally, emotionally, socially, they also realize you never intended to return. You don't announce your exit. You vanish, upgraded. Delayed vengeance means your memory is long, but your heart is clean. You're not weighed down by grudges. You use them as raw fuel, processed, filtered, turned into motion. And when the time comes, if it comes, you deliver your vengeance with such grace. It feels more like a lesson than an attack. The Sigma doesn't settle scores. He renders them obsolete. 5. Master of vanishing. You don't ghost people. You outgrow spaces. Master of vanishing isn't about hiding. It's about knowing exactly when to disappear and why. While others cling to places, people, or routines out of comfort, you detach, not because you don't care, but because you value growth more than familiarity. You vanish when the environment no longer serves the mission. When a circle turns stagnant, you fade. When a job stops evolving, you step back. When a connection feels draining instead of sharpening, you detach, quietly, completely, and without ceremony. You don't announce your exit, you simply stop showing up, mentally first, physically later. People confuse this with aloofness, but the truth is, you refuse to decay alongside the herd. Your disappearances are calculated. Sometimes you vanish to reprogram, sometimes to heal, sometimes to upgrade in peace. Society glorifies hustle culture. Be seen, post daily, update everyone. But Sigma, he rewrites his code in solitude. While the world demands visibility, you demand clarity. Your best decisions are made in the dark, not under spotlight. Your ability to vanish is also a weapon, because no one can predict a man they can't track. You disappear not to escape, but to re-emerge better, smarter, stronger, sharper. You've mastered being temporarily invisible so you can become permanently unshakable. This trait drives others crazy. They want closure. They want explanations. But you're not in the business of satisfying curiosity. You're in the business of internal evolution. The Sigma who vanishes is the Sigma who transforms. And by the time the world catches on, you're already 3 chapters ahead. 6. Loyal to silence. Silence isn't your weakness. It's your currency. While others fear the void, rush to fill it with noise, excuses, validation, you sit in it, comfortably, powerfully. Loyal to silence means your first instinct is to observe, not react. You've trained your tongue to wait until your words are weapons, not just sounds. People try to provoke you. You don't flinch. They try to impress you. You don't respond. They try to read you. But you're written in a language they never learned. Silence with intent. This isn't about being shy. It's about control. You know that the loudest man in the room is often the weakest. You don't need to fill space to own it. Your silence becomes the loudest presence in the room because it forces others to lean in. You're not withholding words because you don't have thoughts. You're editing in real time. You think 5 layers deep before you speak once. You weigh outcomes, reactions, energy. When you finally say something, it lands like a blade. Your silence also protects your mind. You don't argue online. You don't explain yourself to people who lack depth. You don't vent emotionally to weak minds. You understand that silence isn't the absence of noise. It's the presence of focus. People interpret your silence however they want. That's their mistake, because silence is not empty, it's coded. To the Sigma, silence is sanctuary, strategy, power. And when you finally break it, it's not for attention, it's for precision, because a Sigma's words aren't for everyone, they're for effect. 7. Economic assassin. You don't worship money, you weaponize it. The Sigma doesn't flex, he doesn't showboat. He doesn't spend to be seen. He spends to gain leverage, create insulation, and buy back his freedom. You're not a slave to consumer dopamine. You don't fall for drip trends or social validation purchases. You could afford the car, the chain, the luxury, but you don't need it, because you know that real wealth moves quietly and power compounds in the shadows. You don't chase money to look rich. You chase it to be ungovernable. You're what we call an economic assassin, a man who understands that currency is control, not just over others, but over yourself. You make money while others sleep, and you sleep better because of it. You don't talk about passive income, you build it. You don't brag about multiple streams. You structure them, automate them, then forget them. And when you spend, it's for tools, not toys. Assets over aesthetics, power over presentation. You don't spend to impress. You spend to disappear further into freedom. You're not loud with wealth, because the moment you need people to know you're rich, you've already lost the game. Your lifestyle is clean, efficient, minimal. Not because you're frugal, but because you're precise. You track every dollar. You invest in silence. You don't get emotional about markets or trends. You play them like code. And when you strike clean, cold, calculated. You don't buy liabilities. You buy exit routes. Money to you is not status. It's escape velocity. That's the mindset of an economic assassin. Quiet pockets, loud freedom. 8. Truth-tuned hearing. You don't just listen. You decode. You can hear a lie from the way someone exhales. You pick up on inconsistencies others laugh off. You hear what's not being said louder than what is. This is truth-tuned hearing, the Sigma's built-in radar for dishonesty, posturing, and masked intent. While others get lost in tone, charm, and delivery, you break down the frequency. You hear deception like static. It irritates you instantly. You don't confront every lie. That's for amateurs. You just adjust your distance. You remember what they said and what they didn't. You catalog contradictions, watch reactions, and listen to patterns. And once someone proves their words can't be trusted, you quietly remove their influence from your strategy. This is why people get uneasy around you, because they know you're not just hearing, you're watching the frequency under their voice. You hear neediness wrapped in fake confidence. You hear jealousy cloaked in compliments. You hear manipulation disguised as advice. And most importantly, you never lie to yourself. That's the foundation. You stay calibrated to truth because self-deception is the Sigma's only real enemy. You'd rather face the brutal reality than live a comfortable lie. This truth-attuned awareness gives you an advantage in negotiation, relationships, and decision-making. You don't ask for clarity. You hear it, even when it's unspoken. The Sigma hears beneath the surface. And once you hear the real frequency, you can never unhear it again. 9. Unbranded existence. You're invisible by design. The Sigma doesn't crave style recognition or signature looks. He craves functionality, flexibility, and low profile. Your existence is unbranded, not because you lack identity, but because you've outgrown needing one stamped by culture. You don't wear logos. You don't advertise what tribe you belong to. You're the kind of man who could be sitting next to a billionaire, and no one would suspect you are one yourself. This is intentional. You cloak your value. The world is obsessed with being seen. You're obsessed with being effective. While others post outfits, watches, and aesthetics, you're studying systems. You dress plain, not out of laziness, but to stay unreadable. You're not trying to prove you're different. You're just not trying to prove anything at all. You move with minimal visual cues. This allows you to blend in, infiltrate, observe, and when necessary, dominate. You don't wear a brand. You are the brand, internal, encrypted, untraceable. Even in personality, you don't adopt traits to fit expectations. You're fluid, adaptable, undefined by trends or titles. Your brand is your output, not your image. This makes you confusing to shallow minds. They can't categorize you. That's the point. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be unshakable. 10. Purposeful coldness. You're not heartless. You're selective. Purposeful coldness means you regulate your warmth with precision. Not because you're cruel, but because you've learned that access to your energy is a privilege, not a right. You don't fake enthusiasm. You don't force connection. You give attention like a sniper gives bullets, deliberately. People expect warmth on demand, validation, empathy, overload. You don't play that game. You don't exist to comfort egos. You exist to build, protect, and ascend. When you're cold, it's not because you're broken, it's because you're focused. You can't be everyone's emotional oxygen while building empires in silence. People call you cold because you don't react emotionally. You don't panic. You don't explode. You stay icy under pressure, calm during chaos. You reserve your emotional energy for those who've earned it. And even then, it's calibrated. You're not unkind. You're unshakable. You're not unavailable. You're disciplined. That coldness is what protects your inner world. You're not building walls. You're building filters. And when you do show warmth, it matters because it's rare, earned, real, not sprayed like cheap cologne. Purposeful coldness is emotional discipline, and discipline to the Sigma is love, just with a backbone. So here we are, Ascenders. 10 unfiltered, unpolished, unapologetic Sigma traits. Not the watered-down versions they recycle on self-help feeds, but the real architecture of a man who doesn't beg to be seen because he's too busy building in the dark. You don't need to be loud. You don't need validation. You need clarity, control, and a code no one else can break. If you recognized yourself in these traits, even a few, understand this: you're not on the path. You are the path. The world will keep trying to label you, misread you, underestimate you. Let them. Your silence? That's pressure building. Your distance? That's positioning. Your coldness? That's concentration. This isn't motivation. This is memory activation, reminding you who you've always been before the noise got loud. So if you're ready to keep refining the blueprint, keep eliminating the useless, and keep ascending above the noise, subscribe to Sigma Ascends. Not for the algorithm, for the alignment. I'm not here to inspire you. I'm here to arm you. Until next time, stay invisible, stay intentional, and never forget, you're not like them. Stop acting like you should be.